Hi everyone and welcome to another Looker Studio tutorial. Today we will learn how to build a goal tracker. Alright, so like this one over here, you can see revenue. This right now is monthly. It tells us how we should be, where we should be currently at the moment for in this month compared to the main target. We're on pace to do this number. We're averaging this amount of revenue, and we would need to do this amount of revenue daily until the end of the month if we want to reach our main target, right? So what's great about this goal tracker is you can do this for as many metrics as you want without complexifying the setup too much. And also you can switch from monthly to yearly to see your target. All right, so this is really cool. But as you can imagine, this is a advanced Looker Studio tutorial, as all of my other tutorial. I tend to only do advanced stuff because I feel like there's enough beginner tutorial out there. However, if you are a beginner, you should still be able to follow along, but be ready to learn about many features that you might not even know or knew existed in Looker Studio. So we will be looking at creating custom parameters in very creative ways, case functions, and other cool stuff. There is a few links in the description of this video. One that gives you access to this dummy data set that we will be using, so you can make a copy of that and follow along. And you can also get a copy of this Looker Studio template and reuse it in any way you want. Look at the formulas and all of that. All right. So that being said, let's get started, and let's start from a fresh Looker Studio report. All right, so we'll refresh here, and not sure why. All right. Now let's assume that we don't have any data source, so let me remove that. Let's say you just opened a new Looker Studio, so you would go to Resource, Manage Added Data Source, Add a Data Source, Google Sheets. Now you select the data set that of your choice, or the dummy data that you have access to. All right, so now the data is in, we can see it over here. So if we look at the goal tracker, in order to be able to calculate what's the goal and how much is remaining to do in the period of time we're looking at, whether it's monthly or yearly, we can't go right away to creating the pace and target. We have to figure out first how many days are there in the current month or in the year, how many days have passed so far, and how many days are remaining. And we need a way to be able to switch from monthly to yearly easily without creating a ton of different calculated fields. So that's exactly where we will start. So to get started, you'll create a parameter, and we'll call this one P period, and we will also change the name of the parameter ID. We'll select list of values, month, and then year. All right. Then we'll save. So this one will allow us to switch from one period to another. All right, now we need to figure out how many days are in the period that we currently are looking at. So we will create a new field, add a calculated field. This one we'll call it days in period. And here's the formula that we will be using. I won't go into too much details. And if you see that and are panicking right now because you need to pause and type this out, don't. If in first in the description, you'll have a link to a written article where you can copy and paste the formulas. And otherwise, you can always get this template as well. And once you make a copy of this template, you should be able to edit and look at the formulas for each field and copy it or modify it any way you want. All right, so you don't have to type this out manually or even understand everything that's being done in those formula. All right. So basically what it does, you can see it's reusing the parameter we just created, the p period parameter. And basically it says when the period is month, then look at which month we're in right now and calculate how many days there are. As you can see, I'm using the time zone America, Toronto. If you are in a different location, you can use a different time zone or no time zone at all. So even if you were to remove this, it should still work, but I would recommend using the correct time zone. So there's a link here in the documentation for Looker Studio. I think you can look at the list of available time zone, choose the one that fits your location. All right. So now let's save that. One thing you want to do here is go in your data source, and for days in period, you want to change the default aggregation from none to max. All right. Now we'll save this. So now let's take a look at how this metrics, how many days it returns. So it returns 31. We are in August 2025. So that is correct. That is the period monthly. So look at what happens. Now we have this thing here, parameters. And this is because we created a parameter. If I change this to year, you can see it change to the number of days in the year, which is really cool. All right, so that's days in period. As I said earlier, we need also to figure out how many days have passed so far in the month. So today is August 21st, so there are 20 days so far that have completed. We don't want these results yet, because imagine you're trying to track the tracking on your end for your revenue for the month. You don't want to count today because the day is not over yet. And if you want to track today, you can slightly modify your formula, and it should just work fine. Another cool thing to consider, even if your data set doesn't have sales every day, and you have gaps in here, it's not every day that have sales, this will still work because it's not using your data set, it's using the date functionalities inside Looker Studio. So that's another really great thing about this solution. All right. So we have days in period. Now we want to create the number of days that passed. So we will create another field, calculated field. We will call this one elapsed days, and the formula is this one. Again, it looks at the current date basically, and if the period is month, um, it will return a different answer depending on the parameters. So now we'll set this, and 400 days. That's incorrect. Basically why it returns this number, it's because we didn't set it to max. As you can see here, it says sum. So the aggregation right now is sum. So it's doing, maybe I'm wrong, but what I believe is happening is it says 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 up until 21 days. And that would probably give me 400. I don't feel like calculating that. To solve this issue, what we'll do is go again to our data source and set the aggregation to max. You can see it didn't change here because it's still sum. So what I'm going to do is select it again in here, and you can see it switched to max, and we now know 20 days have passed so far. If you don't want to, if you'd like to include today as well, all you would have to do is basically remove that -1 here in the formula. All right. Again, if the time zone doesn't fit for you, change it to wherever you are. Okay. So now we know how many days are in the period, how many elapsed days or days have passed. So technically finding the remaining days should be very easy. It's a simple calculation. So let's create it. We will create this and call this remaining days. And the formula for this is simply max days in period minus max elapsed days. Now maybe you don't need the max, this number in parentheses. I did it anyway, and it works great. This one, we shouldn't have to set it to a default aggregation of max. So let's test this out. Remaining days, 11 days, right? 31 minus 20, there's 11 days remaining. So that's fantastic. This works. Great. Now we want to create a system that would allow us to create one calculated field and be able to track the progress of as many metrics as possible. So for example, here we have sales and revenue. We could go ahead and create calculated field for each of these, like the amount of what's the revenue target, what's the sales target, what's the average revenue per day. But you can imagine that if you had many more metrics, this would become a very long and tedious process, and that you would have to do that for months and for a year, and this could take forever and make your dashboards quite slow. So instead of that, we have a very clever solution. Right? Because right now we'd like to be able to create the current daily average. So if just to give you an example, if I take revenue, right? So give me a second. I will format this so it looks better. I'm gonna go here, sales and revenue. We'll do currency. All right, that's it. And we'll set this to 0. Great. So that's the revenue. And right now it's using all available date from our data set, which we don't want. Right now we're working on a monthly goal tracker. So what we'll do is go to current page settings. We will select our data set and we will select a default date range of this month to date. No, it was already looking at this month to date. Okay. All right. So technically, we want to know what's our current daily average, right? So right now it would be divided in 20 days, right? That would be the daily average that we have so far. We don't want to create the specific metrics for that. We want to be able to make it custom for any metrics for sales, revenue, and much more. So moving forward, we'll create a parameter called P metric again, and we'll create a list of value. So in this case, we have sales. We'll start with revenue, and we have sales. So if we had other metrics that we'd like to include in our goal tracker, you would list them all over here: revenue, sales, cost, let's say per product total. So then you would have profit, for example. Any metrics that you have in here could be added here. Fantastic. Now we'll create a calculated field and we'll call it metric. And the formula you'll be using for this one is simply this. All right. So look at what this allows us to do. Instead of selecting revenue here, I'm going to select this new metric that I've calculated. Okay. And so this is the revenue. And let's look at this so you can clearly see. This is sales this month so far. Okay. Now that I have metrics here, I can simply change P metric to sales, and you can see it adapts. This will be very important because now in our formula, every formula that we create moving forward, we can just use metric in the formula, and then we don't have to create specific formula for each of these metric. We can just create a formula with this and it will work. You'll see how this plays out. All right. And again, this is independent. So over here, this one could be sales and it doesn't change this one. right? And I can even go here and say this one is a currency and this one is just a regular number. I can rename those. They act as if they're not connected in any way, but they're using the same field, which is pretty cool. All right. So now, next step, we want to create a target for each of the metrics that we have, right? So we will create a calculated field and we will call this targets and use this formula right now. So this is where you would set your monthly and yearly target for each of these metric, right? So basically what it says here is if the period is month and the metric is revenue, then the target is 500,000, right? So we have a $500,000 goal monthly target for revenue. Per year is just multiplied by 12, so it's 6 million. And then for when period is month and sales, that's the number of sales, and that's the number of yearly sales. Those are our targets. We're going to save that. And now this is shaping up pretty nicely. So if we have a target, for example, over here, we can say we'd like a metric and our target here, the target metric. Now we can use targets. Set it to max. All right, so before I forget, I'm gonna go back here in the data source and set the aggregation again to be max for the targets. Here, we're gonna go and select targets again. So now, as you can see, well, it's very small. I don't know if you can really see it because it's black on black, but let me do this. It's gonna make it easier. Show absolute change. Why am I not getting the option here? Yeah. All right. So it says that we've done 166,800 of the $500,000 target. Fantastic. So it's working really nicely so far. Okay. However, if we just look at that, this is not very useful because it doesn't tell us, and I don't like to have a big red number here because it tells me that this number isn't good, but it might be good in the sense that we are on pace to reach our main, our monthly target. So it would be much better if it compared this 160,800 to what we should be at now, right? So to the target to date. So how do we figure out where should we be at now? Basically, our monthly target is 500,000, right? There's 31 days. So that's the daily average we should be making in order to reach our monthly goal. Right now, there's 20 days that passed. So we should be at this number. Right now, that's the number we should be at. And we're not there. We're about 50% of the way there. So that's what I would like this red bar to show, to compare against. I'd like for it to show me, am I currently on pace? Because if I see a big red number, I want it to be because I'm not on pace, and not just because it's early in the month and it's normal that I haven't reached my target yet. All right, so how do we do that? We're gonna create another calculated field, and we're gonna call this one target to date. The formula you're gonna use is this one. So it says when the days in period is over, this is just to make sure we don't get like errors. Then we want the target times the elapsed days divided by the days in period. All right, basically just what I did on the calculator. You'll see this one is a metric, so we don't need to set it to max. And right now we'll go over here and we'll change target to date. Fantastic. So as you can see now, it tells us something a bit more useful. And over here, I want this to be a percentage instead. So I want this. So right now we're operating at 51.7%. We're halfway of where we should be at. So now it makes sense for me to see this big red line and number, right? Now we could stop there, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we can do better than this. We can do better than this. Let me zoom in a little bit so it's more pleasant for you. We can do better than this, and right now I'd like to, if you remember, we were displaying the current daily average. So what's the daily average we've done so far? So again, we'll just create a new field. We'll call that current daily average. And here's the formula. Again, there's nothing too crazy about that. It's basically just, but you can see here we're reusing metric instead of revenue or sales or any other metric, which is what allows us to have such a complex and detailed goal tracker without having to create a ton of calculated field. So we have current daily average. So if I was to, let's say, take that and change it to current daily average, that's our current daily average, right? So I could change that to a currency, for example. All right. Now I'd like to know what is my projected. If I continue at that pace, what am I expected to do by the end of this period, this month? Okay. So technically it's my current daily average times 31. Okay. Or if you want, you can calculate it any other way, but this is the simplest. That's the current daily average, and that's the period. So we would be on pace to do that number. So let's just create a field for that. We will call it projected, and the formula is, again, very simple. We reuse the current daily average and we multiply it by the days in period. So our projection would be 258,000, which is far away from our main target, which is 500,000. So let's create another one here, just so we can see what our target's like. We will select targets and make sure that revenue is selected here. So that's the target. That's what our current average. We're projected to do this number. Now we'd like to know, okay, we only have 11 remaining days in the month, and we've only done 166,800 out of 500,000, which is our main goal for the month. What would be the daily average? How much revenue should we average per day over those remaining days so that we still reach our main target? All right, so that's what we'd like to answer. And again, it's not very complicated. We just need to create another calculated field. So we'll call this one daily average to hit target, and the formula will be this. Again, we're reusing what we've built so far, nothing too crazy. So if we take a look at this, we would need to average 30,291 over those 11 remaining days if we want to reach our 500,000 target. All right. And that is pretty much it. So now it's just a formatting kind of project by now. So let me show you how I would go real quick about creating what I did here. So let's just start by creating a shape. We'll set, no, yes, we'll give it a border color, this border radius. All right, this will set up to transparent. Let's delete these. Let's put this. Let's order center back. Now we will create, what is it here? Pace. Now we have target. Current daily average to hit target. to reach target. All right, so we have that. Now we're gonna create, so this is the pace. Projected is pace. Let's remove, we want to hide the name. Where is it? Hide field name. So the font size here is 14. So we want to set the font size to 14. We want to set the background to, here I'm gonna just remove any padding out of that. I'm gonna do the same. I'm just gonna remove all padding. And we want to remove the background, right? Transparent, no border color, none. We just want to keep this metric. So that was projected. Now we'll do targets. Set that to a currency. So this is a bit tedious, but okay. Current daily average. Current daily average. And required to hit goal. Oh yeah, there's this table chart that I added over here. So we'll do it as well. Let's remove the axis. Let's remove the grid line. Let's remove the legend. We want to just show the metric, so that's fine. All right. Something like that. Let's make it a bit smaller because once we look at millions, this will take a bit more place. And there you have it. Let's delete that. And now we have it for revenue. We'll make this a bit smaller. There you go. All right, so that's kind of our scorecard, if you will. We'll move this aside. And now what you can do is just copy this, move it down, and since this is metric that it's using, we can simply switch to sales. Now we will remove this and make this a number, but you get the idea. We didn't have to create any other calculated field for these, and this is all handled automatically. All right, sales. It's a number. Did I do this one? Yeah. All right, and we'll rename this one sales. Great. So that is for our monthly dashboard. Now we will make a copy of this page. So duplicate page. And now in the current page, here we'll change this to yearly. And the current page settings, you'll go to setup and you'll change the default here to year. And I don't know why this one target to date. Should be working, except this one right now. Target to date. Let me go. Oh yeah, and for the page, current page settings, you'll have to change this to this year to date. And I would advise changing these charts to show year month and to show year month over here. And now how can you navigate easily between the two? You're going to create two text field. One monthly. And this is, we'll give it a darker color, the font, and the background, we will give it a kind of a darker blue, because we are already on that page. Doesn't really matter, honestly. Whatever, let's go with gray. And we'll duplicate that and call this one yearly. This one, yeah, has a brighter. Let's give it a bluer color and whatever, a light. Doesn't really matter. Let's create a link here. And we want to send it to that page. Let me actually rename that page. All right. Let's copy and paste this over here. Let's remove the link. From this one. Remove formatting. Let's just put it in the center. Let's give this one the styling here. Change the font color back. Link to monthly. And let's take this thing here. And whatever, you get the idea. And there you have it. So if we go to view right now, you have this dynamic goal tracker that adapts monthly, and you can easily switch to yearly, and you could create weekly and quarterly and add even more metrics. So that's about it. That's the trick. I think this is really cool. All of that happening with just a very few calculated fields. So that's pretty neat. Stakeholders love to see the direction, and this is very useful. Obviously, if you need to customize this even further with, uh, let's say, maybe goals that changes between months compared to previous year and things like that, please reach out because this is a bit more complex and would probably need some data modeling. Um, but enjoy, implement that in your dashboard. Let me know if you managed to find ways to push this even further, and and that's it. So have a nice day, and thanks for watching.